Hi there, Neil from GGO Outdoors again. I just want to make a new video about an app that I found amazingly useful over the last few years called Komoot. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, I believe it's German. But Komoot is a route planning and route recording software for your phone. They have an Android and iOS version available. And I just want to quickly kind of compare it with what's its main competitor in the UK, which is OSMaps. Outside of the UK, the Guthook App is really popular, particularly in the States. Each of these things has their advantages and disadvantages. I'm just going to go through them very briefly, and hopefully you'll agree with me that you think the Komoot app is the best. Talking about Guthook, I have used it very briefly. I haven't used it a lot. I can see why it's popular. It's quite comprehensive in that it has the most common trails available in it. So you basically buy it per trail rather than per area, unlike the other mapping software. So you buy the Appalachian Trail route, for example, for the Guthook app, and that is very comprehensive for that trail. It doesn't tell you anything about anything else. Price-wise, it's comparable to buying a guidebook for that trail, but it does have the advantages that it's immediate on your phone in real time. It does have the other big advantage in that some of the information in it is crowdsourced, so particularly things like water availability is updated kind of daily almost by people using the app. So if there's a water source listed as being available, somebody may say very dry one I visited today, or no water at all. So you can get a good idea of water availability as you're going on your hike. So the Guthook app is really popular, particularly in the US, as I said. It does now include treks and hikes around the world, so Australia, for example, and Europe. So it has expanded its availability of treks, but they are trek specific rather than area or region specific, and that's the main disadvantage with it for me. If I decide I want to go somewhere specific that hasn't got a designated route, long distance route on it, Guthook probably doesn't have that information. Okay, I haven't used it very recently though, so if things have changed, feel free to shout at me in the comment section below and tell me I'm wrong. In the UK, we have an organisation called the Ordnance Survey, which is a government-run body that maps the UK and sells maps to the public and to business. And it has one particular product called OSMaps, which is an app and a website you can use to plan routes and sort of examine routes and record routes. And I'll go to a bit more detail about it in a minute, but I have used it quite a lot in the past. I don't use it anymore because I've used Komoot instead. It is still useful though. I still have it installed on my phone, and the reason for that is that if you buy an Ordnance Survey paper map or laminated map as well, you do get a digital code on the new ones, and with that code you can input that into the app and you can download to the app forever without restriction, without a yearly fee or anything, the particular area that's covered by that map, and it stores it within the app. You can then download that for offline use. So you can, if you've got a large selection of modern maps with digital codes, you can actually get quite a lot of mapping resources into the app without extra cost. Otherwise, what most people use the app for is you can buy it on a subscription basis, and if you do that, you get access to the whole of the UK mapping. So the most common way of paying is a kind of yearly subscription, and that's currently £29.99, so £30 in the UK for 12-month subscription. If you go for auto renew, it comes down a little bit to just under £24. Conversely, you can also pay monthly, and you can have a regular monthly fee, or you can pay just for 1 month. So currently 1 month is £3.99, so £4. That's less than the price of a printed map, and you get access to all of the UK maps for 1 month using the app. Okay, so it's quite good value in that sense. It's certainly not extortionately expensive. All the maps are updated whenever they're updated. So if you have a printed map, that's always going to be slightly out of date if they're releasing a new one. Things don't change very much though in the countryside. Sometimes footpaths, etc. do change. But if you pay for the subscription, you get the most up-to-date data all the time. It doesn't include information on things like water sources or huts condition or anything like that you'd get in the Guthook app. So it's a much simpler thing, but it means you can plan a route or a trip anywhere in the UK using the maps. So you can go on any sort of bridleways, footpaths, paths, roads. It's all included in there. Okay. It's not completely foolproof in a couple of different ways. One of the things I found frustrating with it in the past is that the route planning using the app, using the website, isn't brilliant. And I'll show you some examples of that in a short while later in the video. One of the problems with it is actually it has kind of too much information in it almost. If you're used to looking at OSMaps and using a compass, then all that information is there. But what you really want to know when you're doing a hike, really, particularly if it's along the designated paths, is where those paths are and which way you're going. So actually sometimes there's too much information in the OSMaps. And there's too many maps to choose from. I think there's 6 different types on the website and in the app itself. And when you do your route planning, it's very generous in that it allows you to basically mark a route anywhere on the map. Not on footpaths, across features that you can't actually walk across. But you can optionally tell it to snap to designated routes, but you can only do that within certain maps and at certain zoom levels, which is a little bit frustrating if you're doing something and it's not quite working out how you expect it to. So it's not completely intuitive. There are some drawbacks, but once you get used to using it, it's actually not too bad. One of the great things about it is it does allow you to print out maps on your own printer. Okay. What I should have said as well is that there is a free basic version of OSMaps, but even in the free version, you can print smaller maps on your own printer at home. And if you go for the paid versions, you get the ability to print up to A3 size. So that's quite a useful thing. You don't have to have this massive multifold map out on the hill. You can just take a laminated A4 or A3 piece of the bit you're actually walking on. So that's really good for circular trips, things like that. The biggest problem I had though was with the app, and that was battery drain. If you're using the app to help you navigate out on the hill, the battery drain, particularly if you're recording the route, is significant. Typically, if you go out for 2 or 3 hours walk, I would finding that 50% of my battery would be used by the end of that. So if you're doing on an all-day walk or a multi-day walk, that's obviously not very helpful. And that was my biggest problem with it. Early on, a few years ago, it did also have some bugs in the app, and I just found it a little bit unreliable. It's got a companion app, a sister app if you like, called OSLocate. I do like that. That is free. That is a really lightweight little app. It only does one thing, but it does it really well. And that is, it shows you a compass, but it also shows you your position using the OS coordinates. So if you are unsure where you are and you have a map available, you can whip that out, turn it on. It tells you exactly where you're on the map. So if you are lost, it's really useful for that. So if you're in a group of people, or if you're supervising, for example, scouts or people, young people on the hill, it's a really useful backup to have for them to be able to work out where they are if they do get lost. So I do like that, and it is free. So onto Komoot itself. So I've been using Komoot for approximately 2 years, just over 2 years now. I came across it by accident. I was on the Google Play Store downloading OSMaps, and it just popped up saying, have you tried this? So I did try it, and I was very, very impressed. And I was very impressed because the app itself seemed better written. It was a much smoother experience. It seemed a little bit more responsive. Didn't crash, at all. I don't think I've ever had it crash, actually. And it visually was quite pleasing to look at as well. So that's what drew me into using it to start with. It does have a free version, like OSMaps, It works in a different way to either Guthook or OSMaps though, in terms of what you get for free and what you have to pay for. The free version comes with one region, as it calls it. Now, a region is roughly the size, half the size of a county, I reckon. And you can choose whichever region you want with your free one, but you only get one free. I live in Bristol, so I chose the Bristol area, and it gave me basically bits of North Somerset as my free area. Okay, so it was about half a county's worth. You can buy as many regions as you want. They are roughly £4 each, so they're about the size of a printed map, if you like, in your head. And they're about £4, so about the same price as a printed map. But if you were to buy lots and lots of them, the price would get quite excessive. They do offer region bundles, which are £9 or £8.99. And they're roughly about the size of a county and a half, would be my guess, on the examples that I've seen. So that's another way of buying the bundles. A better version for me was, at the time I purchased, they had an offer on their whole world bundle. So you can get the license to the mapping for the entire globe for normally £30, which sounded like a bargain to me. And at the time I started subscribing, it was actually only £20. So to me that was a no-brainer. For the price of 4 or 5 OSMaps, I had mapping for the entire world through the app. As I have nothing physical, obviously. This is all through the app or through the website. That's not a subscription, that's a one-off fee. Okay, they do offer a subscription service which gets you some extra premium version features. I haven't needed to subscribe to that. I haven't felt the need to subscribe to that. So I'm not going to talk very much about that, but you can always go look on the website to see what extra features you get for that yearly fee. And I think it's comparable. I think it's in the sort of £20 odd a year fee, so it's similar to the OSMaps. But if you've already paid your one-off fee for your whole world at £30, the value that you get extra seemed not very useful for me as a walker. Now, one of the things that's really useful about the Komoot app, and to a certain extent the OSMaps has caught up a little bit with this, is that the Komoot app not only applies to hiking, but you can also plan cycling routes, mountain biking routes, and hill running routes. So it's a little bit more flexible in terms of what it actually provides mapping for. So if you do more than one sport, it's really, really good. If you do more than one sport, some of those extra features may be useful. But for me, for walking, hiking, I don't cycle, then it didn't seem necessary to pay the extra money. So overall, Komoot is actually a little bit cheaper than OSMaps as well if you're using it ongoing. One thing I like about it is that the battery drain problem I had with OSMaps was not as bad with Komoot by a long way. So, recording for, say, 8 hours a day, I was getting something like 45% battery usage. So a whole day was less than half the battery on the particular phone that I was using. So to me that seemed entirely reasonable. A multi-day trip is possible, particularly if you carry a battery bank with you. Okay, so the main problem I have with the OSMaps completely resolved pretty much with Komoot. If it used even less power, that would be even better, wouldn't it? But I think that's probably as low as it's going to be able to go. So what can you do with Komoot? Well, you can do pretty much the same thing as the OSMaps. You can plan routes visually on a map in your web browser at home. Okay, you can plan routes visually on the map in the app itself while you're out and about. So you can, if you don't want to plan something in advance, if you're out somewhere and you want to find a route, then you can plan one yourself. Okay, but also OSMaps does this to a certain extent, but Komoot in particular is really good at promoting maps that have been published by other people, or routes that have been published by other people. So if you do a really nice route, you can make it public, and then people can search for it or find it, and it will show it in the list, and then they can select it and do the same route as you've done. And both in the app and on the website, it does actually promote certain routes, so that you put in near me or a particular area, and it will show you the routes that are available in that area that other people have recommended, both walking, mountain biking, cycling, and hill running. So you can narrow it down by type if you want to. So that's a really useful feature if you want some inspiration about where to go or what to do. Komoot's really good for that as well. You can record routes as you're going along. I have done that. So for example, Appalachian Trail I did in 2019. I planned each day in advance on Komoot. Now, for multi-day hikes, there are disadvantages to planning your day in big detail because you don't know really what's going to happen when you get on the ground, whether you're going to be able to walk as far as you think you could or further. But with the AT, because it has huts at certain distances and things like that, it was fairly simple to use it to try and work out how far you could go in a day and end up somewhere where there was definite camping availability. So for each of the days I was on the Appalachian Trail, I did use it to plan my route. And then when I was actually on the Appalachian Trail, I actually recorded the route as well. And that gives you information about how fast you were going, how much ascent and descent you've done. You can get similar sort of features on a smartwatch, but I was just using my phone for that. So it's really good for doing that. You can review that data later if you wanted to. I'm not sure who's got the time to do that, but you could do that. But it is just available in the app. It also gives you directions. This is probably more appropriate for bikes rather than walking per se, but you can use it like a sat-nav in a car in that you can define your route in advance, you can get out on the hill, press start, and as well as recording the route for you, it'll tell you where to go. So if you come to a fork in a path, it'll say turn left. And if you wander off the path, it'll say the path is 50 meters to the left. So it is actually quite useful to have if you're unsure about where you're going, if it's an unfamiliar area, or if you're not unfamiliar, if you're less confident on the hills, you can actually use it like a sat-nav and it will tell you where to go. That removes some of the skill. So if you're going to be doing that, you're going to lose the ability to use a map and a compass. And from a safety point of view, that's a really useful skill to have. So there are disadvantages to that, but it also means that it's easier to get out on the hill with less fear. So if it encourages people to go out and do some hiking and walking, then I think that's probably a good idea. Apparently you can also now get Komoot as installable apps on smartwatches, e-bikes, and some GPS units as well. I've never tried any of those. I can't comment on those, but that sounds like a really reasonable thing to do, doesn't it? So I think that probably is a good feature if you have one of those devices. So I'm just going to quickly now go through planning a route in Komoot. I'll record my screen and then you can see how it is. I'm going to do the similar sort of thing in OSMaps and show you some of the main differences. Okay, so we're going to use Komoot to plan a route. You can start by typing in an address as your start point. Using this box here, you can choose what kind of sport it is you're going to be doing. Hiking, bike touring, mountain biking, road cycling, running, gravel riding, enduro mountain biking, and mountaineering. So there's quite a choice of sports. I'm just going to stick to hiking. You can also put in your fitness levels here if you want to, and what kind of route you want, whether it's one-way round trip. If you're doing the manual planning, you don't need to worry about that. You can manually put in a start point or an end point, but when you start clicking on the map, these start to fill up. Okay, so we're going to head to the Brecon Beacons, which is in South Wales, and we're going to do a little walk around this valley here. As you zoom in, you get the general idea of the geography with contour lines on it, and the grey lines are the marked paths. Okay, the red little circles are points of interest that other people have added to the map from their published walks. Okay, so you can click on those and use them as waypoints, or you can click on the paths and use mark waypoints that way. We'll start by marking a waypoint here because there's a car park just there. So we're going to start there. Then we're going to come up this side of the valley and we'll set that as a destination for now. And then it's asking us what kind of activities we're going to be doing. So we're going to be doing hiking. So it's giving us the best route for hiking. Now we're going to go along here, and as I move the cursor along the path, you can see it gives you an idea of what the profile is in each of those places, and you've already got a summary here about how long it's going to take, how far it is, the elevation gains, and losses here. It shows you the types of path you're going to be on and also the surfaces you're going to be on. So sometimes it doesn't know, so 38% unknown at this point, but 62 is unpaved, it knows that. So because I'm logged in and I'm based in the UK, it's given this information in miles and feet, but it also displays it in kilometres and metres depending on where you live in the world. Moving on, we're going to put another waypoint. I'm going to include somebody else's point of interest as a waypoint, so we're going to include that, and it starts to build up your route for you. Okay, and then we're going to add this waypoint, and if I include that on the route, something should happen. Yes, so because this waypoint is near the start of the route, it's included it in the start, which is not what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on it again to remove it, and instead we're going to click on it and select set as new endpoint, and that will make sure the path continues the way we're going. We want to finish where we parked our car, so we want our endpoint to be down here, so we can click around trip and it creates a path for us. So there you go, it's created a route for us, 4.5 hours, 7.4 miles give or take, and about 1,500 feet of ascent. Okay, you can modify the path by dragging it, and you can add an extra waypoint, but it then allows you to go on your preferred route rather than the one it's chosen for you. That's going to take an extra 10 minutes because it's a little bit further. We don't need to do that, but it's very easy to change the route if you want to. And that's pretty much it. The summary down at the bottom here now shows you what the elevation profile is like, and it colour codes it here as red because it's about 29 degrees inclination at one point there on this very steep ascent just here, and the rest of it's a bit flatter, slow climb here and then dropping down. So all that information might be useful for you if you're deciding where to stop for rests and plan food, etc. But it really is very simple just to do that. And then you click save and we get to name it. It's suggested a name based on where we are, but we're going to do, I'm going to call it something different. I'm going to do it without caps. And what it does, it provides a nice summary for you. It's pictures from other people's tours if they've published them, and included them because of the because we included some waypoints that were other people's points of interest. So it's giving you a summary of the highlights of the trip, okay, which is really nice. Gives you some kind of incentive to be there. Some great pictures. Summary again of the trip. It gives you a rating for how hard it thinks the trip is. So it's rated this trip as intermediate because there are some steep ascents. Okay, so it gives it 3 grades: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. I think they are from memory, and they're pretty reliable. They're pretty close to what I've experienced on the ground. You get a summary map at the bottom, which you can enlarge. You get your profile. Summary here, and you also get a little weather prediction based on today's weather and the next 2 or 3 days. And that's how you use Komoot. You can then share that, well, not share it, you can then invite other people to view your route if you've not made it public. By default, it's visible only to me. But I can invite other people to join me on the walk, or I can actually share this by making it public or sharing it by email, etc. I can replan it if I've made a mistake. I can export it to a GPS device if I want. If I don't have the Komoot app on my phone, if I had a different GPS device, I could export the raw data, and I can print it out. It doesn't print OS style maps in the same detail, but it is pretty decent printout. And if I really don't like it, I can delete it. But that is basically planning a route in Komoot. It's pretty straightforward. Planned routes appear in your profile, so you can click on planned routes and it just shows you what you have in mind. So basically we're going to try and plan the same sort of route in OSMaps. I've got a free trial at the moment of the premium, so this includes all the features The free 7-day trial is worth giving it a go if you want to try out the service from Ordnance Survey. So routes, click on routes, and you get to do very similar things. You can discover routes. So if you are zoomed on an area, it will show you the routes that have been published and shared by other people. Okay, and again, you can narrow that down by distance and difficulty if you want to, and different types of sport. Okay, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to create a custom route. Okay, you can have your own route. That's empty at the moment. But if you have created some routes, you appear them in there, and you can export it to GPS. So you can export it to GPS device once you've created a route. But we're going to create a simple route, same as we did in Komoot. We're going to be doing walking. The summary so far is 0 minutes and 0 kilometers for obvious reasons. We're going to do the same walk, so we're just going to zoom in. Slightly different style of map, but it's the same information, give or take. Okay, but this is Ordnance Survey's take on that. Slightly more information on the screen. It's harder to see quite exactly what it is, but it does give you a slightly better idea of what the terrain is. On here there's no routes, there's no paths apart from roads marked yet. This is the standard map. Okay, because there's no routes on here, you can't use the snap tool or anything. You can just start plotting and draw across the terrain. OSMaps allows you to draw straight across the terrain, even over things you don't want to, or you couldn't physically walk over, like a lake. But if you use the snapping tool, then that obviously that stops that from happening. You can have trouble with the maps if you're not looking at the right map. So if you had a paper map, you'd have Ordnance Survey 1 to 50,000. It would look like this. Okay, and then if you zoom in a little bit more and you get the 1 to 25,000, you'll be familiar with those if you've been using your maps and compasses for years. Okay, in this mode you can use the snap, but only if you're in the National Parkways map, which is slightly different. It's a little bit annoying because of that, but that's just the way it is. It's supposed to give you more choice, more flexibility. I accidentally clicked on the screen and it's put a random line across there. We're gonna remove that. So we're gonna undo that. So if we go back to the kind of map we're more familiar with, the ones that have got the actual paths marked on them, we're going to try and plan the same route that we've just done. In this mode, there's no other people's points of interest. It is purely just the map, and you plan. I've done it again. You plan on where you want to go based on your own kind of knowledge. So we're going to start at the car park again. So I'm going to click. That was my first point. Let's remove that because I'm not sure why that's there. Start again. Plot. Start at the car park. It's not letting us snap because we're not zoomed in enough. Now we're zoomed in. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that as well, and we'll just start purely from scratch. So, car park, first point. Second point here is a dam. So we want to go along this path, and it is snapping for us. Then we want to go up this path and along this ridge. Now, it's not letting us do that. And immediately it's not obvious why. Let me choose a closer point of interest, and again it's not letting us do that, so let's undo. If let's remove that. What about if we turn snap off? Can we get there? Yes, we can. It lets us walk across the lake. We don't want to do that. To undo things, you can either click undo, or if you've put in something, you can remove individual waypoints. Let's go back to plotting and using snap. It appears the reason it won't let us do that is it can't find a junction between these particular routes here. Now, I've completely chosen this point at random because it's somewhere I know. I didn't know OSMaps was going to do this. whether it's particular to this particular map or whether OSMaps knows something that we don't. For example, has the dam collapsed or has the path given way? You know, is it that up to date? But either way, it's not letting me plot the route I actually want. So what I'm going to do is cheat. I'm going to do a route to there. I'll get rid of that waypoint. We'll go back to plotting, but we'll take off the snap just to get us to this point. Put snap back on and then see if it's let us goes up the hill now. Yes, although it's not snapped to the path. What about this waypoint? That one's snapping to the path. If we move this manually, it's going to give us a good approximation. Right, so we went up to Corndu, and then we went to Pennyfan. Missed out Cribbin, because we were heading for this path here. Back down the side of the valley, and back to the cars. It won't let us do a closed loop. It's asking us if we want to remove that point. We don't, so I'm just going to put a second point near it to finish the tour. Okay, so we've now plotted our route. It took a little bit of cheating because of this section here. As I said, I don't know whether that's just coincidence or whether it's super duper OSMaps being more up to date than Komoot. We get a similar sort of result though. We get a time displayed and a distance, and our waypoints are listed here. You can get more detail by opening up these, and it tells you kind of directions to go and what to do at junctions, that sort of thing. You also get a profile map, a profile feature here, and it moves around the map the same way as Komoot did. Okay, so it's pretty much the same. It gives you a total ascent here, but it doesn't tell you anything about the types of paths you're on, unlike Komoot. That may not be a big deal for you, but if you have certain mobility problems, you may prefer to be on certain types of paths, for example. But basically, once you've done that, you can save it. We've told it we're walking, by the way. So we're going to save it, and it's pretty similar, except for a couple of big differences. We've got it Brecon beacons via OSMaps. Okay, you have to tell it what type of surface it is. You have to tell it what kind of difficulty the route is, rather than it calculating it from the position and the types of paths. And it defaults to sharing it, so that may not be your preference. I'm going to change that. I'm going to click save, and I'm done. Okay, so you can then export this to GPS device. You can share it through things like Gmail or email links in the same way you can with Komoot. You can get the waypoints again and the elevation profile. You can print it out at, on your own printer as well using this icon here, and with the premium version you can print those out to A3 if you wanted to. So this map does contain more information than the than the Komoot map. It's got the cairns marked, for example, and that sort of thing. But if you're walking along a marked path, an established right of way, then that's not very much extra information. That's really useful if you're going across the terrain, not following a path. Then it definitely is, and that's where a paper map or OSMaps can be much more useful. OSMaps only covers GB though, so if you're going outside of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, then OSMaps is no good to you. Does it include Northern Ireland? Should do. Let's have a look. No. So England, Scotland, Wales is your limit. Can't go to Northern Ireland, can't go to France or Europe. So if you want to plot something that's a little bit further away, OSMaps isn't going to work outside of Great Britain. So you've seen how planning routes is slightly different on the two apps, and as you can tell, I'm biased, I prefer Komoot. There are some features in OSMaps that aren't available in Komoot. The 3D fly-through of your routes that you've planned is cool, it looks good. if you're not great at visualization and reading contours off a map, it might give you a much better idea about where you're about to be going, what to expect. In the route I planned in my demo, there's a really steep bit at the beginning, which you can tell from the contour lines. But if you're not good at reading a map, the 3D view definitely reinforces the fact that it's very steep at that initial bit, and then it gets a little bit flatter. So that is quite a cool feature, and I'll show you a video of that. So there are some things that OSMaps does do that Komoot doesn't, but they're not actually that useful if you're an experienced walker and you're actually out on the hills. Komoot does actually seem to work better for me. Now, hopefully that was a useful review. I'm going to carry on using Komoot. If you find anything that's better, please let me know. But so far, nothing has come close to Komoot for both reliability, which is essential when you're out on the hill, price, really good, and just ease of use. I think, the three main things that it really delivers on are those. So hopefully you found that useful.